I want to thank everyone for being here for today's news conference. I also appreciate the media working with us to keep the public updated on COVID-19. And in addition, Dr. David Pearce, who is also here, that everyone is familiar with. We are continuing, as always, to practice social distancing, and that's something that we are emphasizing every single time, and that will be the case until we are past this crisis. This is the new normal, unfortunately, but we're doing our part to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So, as you can see today, this room was especially kind of redone so that people could spread out. I want to recognize the council members that have already done, and also members from the Asian Chamber, Paul Gore, being you, Chair of the Asian Chamber, and Barbara Gallo. We're getting, and Kenneth Lee is also present up here as well. We're gathered with our friends in the Asian Chamber of Commerce and community partners. They have graciously donated today over $42,000 in medical supplies to the city of Houston following our urgent calls for personal protective equipment, and I want to thank them for their donation. The Asian Chamber has always been a proud partner to the city of Houston as we have worked together on cultural, economic, and business development. And this is another example of the relationship and the friendship that exists within our city. We all know that at the start of the COVID-19 health crisis, Asian businesses were hit hard by rumors and therefore lost a lot of customers and revenue. But despite all of that, they have stepped up again to help out their Houston and the Houston people in the region, and I certainly want to thank them. Despite some business losses and other challenges faced as a result of COVID-19, they never lost faith and continue to give back to the greater Houston community. The donations we are accepting today includes 10,000 masks, 40 gallons of sanitizers, 825 isolation gowns, 270 goggles, 500 facial shields, 250 boot covers, 3,600 gloves. And I want to thank everyone involved as contributing partners. Yeah, you can give it up to them. And if I could speak for Ben, I know he will be up here later. Ben has indicated to me that also more on the way. So thank you so very much, Ben. I want to thank everyone involved as contributing partners in the Together Houston is Stronger campaign, the Houston Tsinghua Alumni Association, the Sino Professionals Association, the J.J. Clements Volunteer Team, and the following are partners who have committed towards the future of this campaign: the Chinese Civic Center, the Houston Beijing University Alumni Association, the George H.W. Bush Foundation, China Coronavirus Action Network, the Houston Chinese Association, the Chinese Association of Professionals in Science and Technology. And again, let me thank you in a moment when everybody across our country are looking for needed and vital supplies. I certainly want to thank the Asian Chamber of Commerce for stepping up and helping us out. Now let me yield now to Ben Yu, the chairman of the Asian Chamber of Commerce. Look, this is an important time. It's a critical moment in time, and it takes all of us working together in order to get past and through this challenge, this crisis. And so I certainly want to thank the Asian Chamber of Commerce for their generous contribution. Now, at this point in time, I'll pause and take any questions anyone may have. I think the county, they are meeting, and I think we're all working on what the next steps will be or should be. And I know the county judge and we've had conversation earlier today. We'll have additional conversations before the day is out. But we're all thinking through what the next steps should be. I don't want to get bogged down in terminology, but that process is on the way. We need to be very careful in just using terminology. I think a better way of putting it is, what are the goals and objectives that we are seeking to achieve? I think that's the starting point. What are we seeking to achieve? And the goal, the universal goal, whether you're talking New York, California, Washington, Illinois, state of Texas, and other places, is to take the necessary steps to blunt the progression of this virus such that our healthcare delivery system is not overwhelmed. That is the overall objective, okay? Now, you can call it by, you can use many labels, but the question is how to achieve that. Already, for example, in the Houston area, when it comes to restaurants, bars, and clubs, we've already addressed that. By and large, when you come to gyms, cinemas, theaters, we've addressed that. There are no sporting events. There are no cultural arts events that are taking place. Schools are closed. That's on the elementary, secondary, and higher ed. They are closed. So when you look at what is already there are no large gatherings. We have reduced that group to about 10 or less. That's already in effect and taking place. Even for the city of Houston, we have reduced the number of employees that have to come to their station. If they can do their jobs from at home, they're working remotely. For many of the businesses that are in the city of Houston, for example, if you're talking about NRG, AT&T, and others, they are reduced to pretty much their essential personnel, and many of them are working remotely. So that's what you have already. When you look at the orders that exist in California and New York and some of these other places, what is functioning taking place in the city of Houston and our region, in large part mirrors what they have ordered. If you look at the order that the county judge in Dallas put in place, it speaks about sheltering in place. Then there's a laundry list of exceptions, a laundry list, including liquor stores, okay? And so the question then becomes, what is it that we are trying to achieve, and how do we do it in such a way that we are being truthful and transparent with the people that are looking to us for guidance and direction? So that's where we are, what the next step should be. I think we're all thinking through that process as to what the next direction should be. But it's not something where you're putting forth a placebo and then there's a laundry list of exceptions. So everyone is working on that. What I would tell people right now, social distancing is important. We have already reduced the number of employees, for example, that are going to businesses, and they ought to be working remotely from at home. And there is no order, for example, that are telling people you just can't leave your house, okay? If you look at all of them, it doesn't exist. If you look at a place like California, and so all of the people that are on the beaches in California, look at the places in New York and see what's happening there. So it is important that we speak with as much clarity as possible, that we are as honest with people, and that people have to be responsible as well. So we're working through that, and that's a message that we're all trying to craft, not just in the Houston-Harris County region, but quite frankly with other counties and cities throughout the state. And we're all talking with one another in real time. You're trying to balance your health care objectives because you don't want to overwhelm your medical center, medical delivery system. So you want to blunt the progression. I mean, that is the goal, to blunt the progression. And in order to blunt the progression, of course, it comes into social distancing and all of the other things that we are asking people to do: sanitize, wash your hands, avoid large groups, all of that. On the other side is the economic balance, because the reality is that you don't want to do something, for example, that just that's a total economic shutdown, and then people are in their livelihoods totally disrupted. And that can be, in some cases, for many people, can be worse than the virus itself. So what we're all trying to do is strike that balance, okay? And even if you tell people, okay, to stay at home, you're working remotely, stay at home. The other question then becomes is the enforcement piece, okay? And so in all of the orders, they're not telling people not to go to the parks, but if people are going to the parks, they ought to practice social distancing. If you're going to the parks and you're within arm's length of a person in front of you or behind you, then you're way too close. Okay? If you're in the park and you're not engaging in social distancing, then you're not meeting the request that people are making on you. If, for example, if you're not clubs, bars are shut down, but if you are holding private parties in your home and there are more than 10 people in your home, then you are not practicing what we are asking you to do. Okay, um, all of those things are critically important. So what we are trying to do is to recognize, let people, number one, to emphasize this is important, this is serious, and we all need to take it serious. Okay, but when you look at what we have already done in the city of Houston, and take a look at what the orders in some of these other cities or some of these other states, I think you will see, functionally speaking, we are doing most of those things, but what we are all considering, I know the county judge, myself, other county judges and mayors in other parts of the state are saying, what's the next step and what do we need to do? And we're all thinking through that process. That's a long answer, Maya, to your question. Well, that's not true. Just like the 4 firefighters the other night, they were placed in a hotel and quarantined. And then the city has also been working with 2 other hotels in the city of Houston to lease those hotels specifically for first responders and others who cannot self-quarantine at their home. These events have happened rapidly, and the city has been in negotiation, for example, with hotel owners to lease those hotels, and I would tell you approximately about 180 rooms that we are looking at leasing, and those deals probably should be consummated before the week is out. Yes, I myself, the other night, when the word came that they needed to be quarantined and they could not go home, I gave the order for them to be placed in hotels, and they were. So if anyone gave you any information otherwise, they're mistaken. Okay? And that's what I'm saying. Information is important, and this is a point in time when we all need to be working together, not trying to score points from a tragedy or from a crisis. We need to work together. And if you can recall, when we started our testing, who were the first people for testing for the city of Houston? First responders and healthcare providers. Yeah, what I'm saying is that I think it's important for whatever we put forth to people that that is how can I put it? It speaks with clarity and with integrity. And what I mean by that is that when I listened to the county judge news conference and I read the order, and it speaks about a shelter in place, but then there's a laundry list of exceptions. I mean, please take a look at the order. And when you start accepting out liquor stores and everything else, then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it's shelter in place, but there's this whole laundry list. You don't want it to be more confusing, and what you put in place, you want it to be enforceable. I mean, that's important. I will say that with what we have done in the city of Houston, when we've postponed, for example, any and all city permitted, produced, sponsored events through the end of April, we've already done that. All schools in our area are now closed. That's done. All cultural arts events have been either canceled or rescheduled. Conferences, conventions, gone in the city of Houston. Gyms, theaters, things like that closed. Restaurant, bars, nightclubs, with the exception of takeout or delivery, that's done. So it's important for us to make sure we have compliance on all of those additional measures. And now what we are taking a look at in all honesty, in candor, is what additional things can we put in place that can also further the goal of blunting the progression of this virus. What additional things can we do? Instead of some sort of blanket assessment or order, but what additional things that we can do that are strategic and achieve the same objectives and speaks with clarity. But we're working through that. We're thinking through the process and what the next steps will be, and I suspect within the next 24 hours or something, we'll probably work these things out. But it's not just here locally. There are conversations taking place with other cities and county judges as well. Okay, again, let me thank the Asian Chamber of Commerce. Certainly appreciate the donation. Let me just say, if there are others out there who have supplies that they also want to donate. We certainly would appreciate all of that, and then we'll continue to work through the necessary steps to keep people safe within the city of Houston. Again, let me encourage everyone: social distancing, social distancing, social distancing, social distancing. That's the main thing. To those people who are, for example, in our parks and other places, same thing, social distancing, and avoid just large groups and crowds. That's the best way you can help us. Even if, for example, you're at home, you're working remotely from home, you still need to practice that when you're leaving your home and you're outside. That's the important thing.